Hello, I'm here today to spend some time with you on some subjects that are dear to my heart. There's a scripture that says, and this is a paraphrase from me, it says, the lazy man does not roast what he hunted. In other words, he goes to the forest and hunts an animal, but he comes back and does not roast it. In other words, he does not process the animal he got in the bush while hunting. This is a peculiar tendency in African nations. We have a lot of resources, but we don't process them. We keep on expecting to just sell them out as raw commodities to Western nations or to developed economies. Now, I think I've heard that there are policies or international politicking around these resources, and that's why sometimes the African nations are sort of twisted into not processing these resources. But that's on the larger scale, right? That's on the larger scale, because at that level, maybe you would need to be way tougher to stand against Western authority. But when you bring it down to the home front, when you bring it down to families, you'll notice that people could have skill sets and nobody would recognize those skill sets. Nobody would even sponsor those skill sets. You could have a family member that is very good with tailoring, and then you don't think you should sponsor it to become a major fashion label. And sometimes, there are times when I thought, because I'm into the creative industry, I thought that, or maybe the issue is that the creative industry is not a booming venture to go into. It's not very lucrative. I'm Nigerian, so I know what I'm talking about. We don't refine the oil, the petroleum we bring from the ground. We drill from the soil, right? And you would think that, or maybe because you're in the creative industry and it doesn't have a lot of money, and that's why people are not investing in it. Then you would notice that medical doctors are going on strike from time to time. You'll notice that the petroleum that we have naturally is not being harnessed. We'll notice that solar energy that we have in abundant supply is not being harnessed, is not being funded by private individuals or the government. And so when I remember all these examples and more, I would tell myself, the issue is not because you're in the creative industry. The issue is because generally, Black people, and it may sound offensive, but Black people tend to not invest in anything. They tend to want to go look for greener pastures that they did not create and enjoy those greener pastures. They rather sweat it out under a system that was created by another race. And then when they go there, they feel entitled and they start complaining that they are ill-treated. And that's why when I see them crying on the roads and having rallies and all that, I don't necessarily think those things are wise, because I know the lifestyles of these Africans in the diaspora. I know the lifestyles of Black people. The parties that we throw as Black people would fund a whole village. The parties we throw as Black people could harness a particular skill, even though it's just skills of about 5 people. But we don't. We'll wait for the government and have that as the reason things are not working. But there's just this inherent tendency not to roast the meat you caught in hunting. It's not because there's a particular industry that does not work. Actually, every industry works, because when you're in these developed economies, everybody has a skill set and everybody becomes buoyant, or at least self-sufficient. So it is my admonition to Blacks as a whole, whether they're Africans or they're foreigners, but just the Black race as a whole, to learn to invest massively, not the silly tokenization that they do, but massively invest in skill sets, in products that we have abundantly in Africa. That will cure or at least curb racism a lot. Thank you.